Hello and welcome to the Deep Tech Talk, a tech podcast presented by BIS Research. Today we have with us Debraj and Shresht to discuss the fascinating intersection of agriculture and technology. When I talk about agriculture, the first thing that comes in my mind, or I would say the first image that reflects in my mind is a tractor, of course, and a farm. Okay, so since then we have seen multiple of advancements and innovations and lot of things going on in the agriculture industry, right? While we talk about artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, of course, IoT, yeah, and so these are not just buzzwords now. The farmers are using them. The farmers are implicating all these technologies, all these tools to revolutionize their farming practices, which makes me ponder upon my first question, that how can agriculture, or I would say how can traditional agriculture knowledge and practices can go hand in hand with the technology or upcoming technology?
So I think we should start from the very beginning. And yes, of course, I think you are not the only one who actually sees a tractor when it comes to agriculture. I think it's everybody. Even when I started with this, industry, I also thought that agriculture is all about tractor only. The thing is that traditional agricultural practices will they'll remain, as potent as possible. There is no alternative to that. The technology part is actually trying to increase the efficiency, how exactly things are working, how exactly they used to work. And just to give you an example, agriculture industry is kind of a labor intensive process. If you look at Indian perspective, you will see there is a lot of labor involved in the entire value chain of agricultural practices. The let's just say harvesting. There are farmers, or I should say farmers who don't own lands. They travel from some states of India to the states where exactly they are needed for harvesting, and that is done during that particular season. Now what technology is doing, they are reducing this huge burden, or the intensiveness towards human capital or farmers, and they're reducing the requirement of the workers that is there needed in traditional practices. So this is the impact of technology. This is the one of the most important impact. The second thing that we can discuss about, or we can talk about, is of course you would see, or you yourself might have felt when you started using your mobile phones, right? Back in 1998 or early 2000, you would have seen there is just one small box with bunch of keys, and you can just call and play the snake game there, right?
Yeah.
But now you have a lot of Android devices, Apple devices, a lot of phones that can do a lot of things for you. It made your life easier. It reduced a lot of effort for which you might have been putting a lot of effort for some work. Just to give you a small example, you don't need to go to a bank to do your transactions. You can do it online. So similarly, the process that was conventional, or we call it conventional agriculture, is just transformed into a digital one, where you need to put less amount of effort. The resources that were deployed can be optimized now. We can increase the overall efficiency of the entire operations, and that is how technology is affecting the conventional agriculture. So just to give you a small gist, globally it is happening, not only in India. Some few examples, or one of the great nations, I would say, that is practicing precision agriculture and smart farming or technology based farming is US. There is a high penetration of technologies there, and the reason behind that is because people are adopting it. They know that adopting these technologies will help them increase productivity, optimize resources, and increase the overall efficiency throughout the value chain.
So, as you talked about conventional and traditional farming practices, of course, they have been fruitful for a period of time.
Exactly.
But after a while, technology happened, and yes, of course, in agriculture, some technological practices, farming practices, which include like indoor farming or vertical farming. So, what do you think? Is it just is it viable? This technology is viable for all types of crop, or is it just limited to a fewer crops?
So, if we talk about current agricultural scenario, there are certain challenges that are associated with traditional farming practices. However, these indoor farming or vertical farming practices cater to these certain challenges, but they are not completely entirely viable, so to speak, for increasing crop productivity, because they are restricted to a certain crops like vegetables, grains, but they're not viable for, let's say, for example, sugarcane, rice, wheat, barley, etc. So, to answer your question, yes, it is viable alternative to traditional farming practices, but there is a certain limitation for introducing them to modern agricultural practices.
Okay. Okay, so if we talk about modern agricultural practices, that comes hydroponics, aquaponics. These sort of technologies have also been advanced, right? So my next question is that can agriculture systems like these, like hydroponics, aeroponics, aquaponics, are they really solving the issue of resource consumption or resource optimization?
Yes, but not entirely true. They have been solving these issues because these systems, modern systems, require less water for crops to be grown in a very constrained space. Because, as you know, global population is increasing at an alarming rate. Cities are expanding at an ever increasing speed, and so to it is very crucial to have huge land for scale for increasing the production at scale. So for that reasons, these newer technologies are definitely helping to solve those issues, but they are not entirely solving at a commercial scale. So this is
So to add on that particular point, it's also driven by policies and what is required now. So just to give you an example, agriculture is one of the most important industry for human existence, because we depend on that for the basic need, that is food. Now, just imagine we already have a system that is producing food for the masses. However, when you compare that with hydroponics, aquaponics, and other types of indoor and vertical farming systems, you have a limitation. As discussed, only few crops. Just to give you names, this is tomatoes, leafy greens, and some of the vegetables we can grow in these systems. That is not going to solve the overall problem of 7.5 billion people. WHO has said that almost by 2050, this population is going to reach 9.5 or even 10. The rate that we are growing, it's also possible that we can surpass that forecast, right? So there is a serious need to improve what is already there. Of course, these systems will work as a kind of a backup, but you cannot produce that much food with just these systems.
Okay.
That's one of the key areas where they are still working on, and one of the most alarming challenges, or I can say most important challenges that they are currently facing is energy. Energy prices are increasing, and these systems require energy, because when you're growing something in a controlled environment, you have to have a lot of I would not say technology, but basic things or basic equipments that are required. Just for example, an HVAC system, which is basically controlling the internal environment, the airflow, and what type of environment you want. That uses a lot of electricity. So on the other hand, they are sustainable, but you have to think where exactly that electricity is coming from.
The source,
right? So that's the only gray area that they are currently facing a huge challenge, and of course, commercial viability. It's not there yet.
So as we talked about certain practices, technological practices, be it any hydroponic, aquaponics, farming techniques, So, which makes me wonder that this all these technology and all these farming practices, are these sustainable? Are these a path, or do they travel on the path of sustainability, or is it just a facade for profitability for by the tech companies?
So the short answer to that, any business that operates in this current economic situation does anything for profit, right? Profit is the most important thing for any kind of business. However, there is an aspect attached to that particular thing. How exactly you are gaining your profits? It could be sustainable, it could be non-sustainable also. So companies nowadays, what they are trying to do here is that they are trying to invest in sustainable technologies just to make sure that we are not only increasing overall profitability of agricultural business, but also maintaining a minimum bar where you don't have to, answer Mother Earth. For example, EU, European Union, they just passed not a law basically. They all the member states signed a deal that's called EU Green Deal, which dictates that almost all the industries, including agriculture, will get carbon neutral at a set date. So for especially for agriculture industry, what they did is by 2030, 2035, they have a target to convert the 8% land which is organic now to 25% of the overall EU land mass.
Okay.
So they are planning big, right? Now when you talk about profitability, if you apply proper technologies, you are optimizing it and you're gaining profits, right? We're talking about farmers. You can compare farmers from Asia Pacific, who are generally poor. Why? Because the land distribution is high. I mean, the land distribution in Asia Pacific, the average land ownership in India, China, and other Asia Pacific country is less than 0.82 hectares, as compared to Europe, which has an average land of, let's say, 10 to 15 hectares per farmer or per family. It increases again when you go to US. The average is more than 50, and surprisingly in Argentina it's more than 500.
It's quite uneven.
It's quite uneven, right? So you're not only thinking about agricultural practices alone, you also have to think about these farmers, right? So profitability is an important thing. Without that, businesses cannot sustain. That is only the thing that is driving a change in terms of agricultural adoption, agri-tech adoption, as well as it's also giving funds for sustainability.
Yeah. So as we talk about the tech companies, which obviously comes to my next question, that is, what are your thoughts on the collaboration between tech companies, farmers, and agronomists, financial institutions, etc., so that to access tech and capital for farmers, especially for the farmers?
So it's an important and interesting theory. All the companies, whether it is, I can name a few, Syngenta, ACCO, BSF, these companies are trying to involve the entire value chain, all the stakeholders that are involved in agricultural practices. Why they are doing it? Because you have different perspectives. The farmer has a different perspective. The OEMs have a different perspective. The multinational and chemical companies have a different perspective, right? So when these perspectives collide, they are trying to solve an already existing problem, which is the sustainability as well as the growing population. How exactly we are going to feed it, right? So these companies, what they are trying to do here is they are trying to go beyond what they were doing 10 years back. They are trying to involve farmers in these discussions. They are trying to fund a lot of NGOs, groups, consortiums, as well as businesses, cooperatives that can help farmers not only to gain knowledge about technology, but also train them how to use it, utilize it for their own benefit. So there is a serious collaboration or serious kind of collaboration already existing in agricultural ecosystem, and I believe without that it is not possible for a mass adoption of agri-tech solutions. The government has to be involved, the local stakeholders has to be involved, the distributors has to be involved, and the companies has to be involved. So there are a couple of countries which are having this as a policy. For example, in India, EU, US. So US has recently passed a law in US FDA, which states that there is a serious need for collaboration between existing farmers, the exiting farmers. I mean, there is a huge conversation going on. A lot of farmers, they are leaving agriculture because they don't find it suitable, or maybe the profitability issues are driving them away. So the policies are being drafted in favor of such an adoption, so that the benefit is not restricted to a single or a group of party, but to the entire stakeholder. And when I say stakeholders, the entire value chain. That includes farmers, and that also includes the multinational companies.
To add up to this, there is no shred of doubt that technology will be advancing the entire value chain with the help of technology players. The entire supply chain and value chain will be, sort of automated at different points, because technology itself is there's a huge gap between implementation of technology from country to country. If I talk about India, farmers will not be using the technology up to an extent where US farmers are being using. So there's a huge gap of adoption rate in country to country when it comes to augmentation of technology in agriculture and different aspects.
And the biggest challenge is awareness, basically. Farmers are not aware that whether this technology is actually going to help them or not. And this happened earlier also. So when tractors came in, there were a lot of traditional farmers, both in third world countries, developing nations and developed nations also, that were reluctant to use a tractor. They thought that they have bulls, they have animals to do these stuff, but they were not aware that how efficient the entire operation could become. And green revolution happened in early 50s, 1950s, just after the World War. We can see there is an example of Mexico, there is an example of Argentina, Brazil, India. These countries took that banner, and we ourselves, we put everything into that particular revolution. And now you will see that one of the highest rates of mechanization is in these developing nations. So Brazil, Argentina and India. I'm not saying that in terms of technology adoption these countries are behind US, or they are far away, or they are superior. No, not like that. There is still a gap. That gap is already there, and that comes conventionally with the reluctance, or people are not used to of change. So there is a serious issue of awareness, and these collaborations can help in aware farmers that how exactly a particular farming technology is not going to disrupt the ways you are doing it, but it's actually going to increase the efficiency of the operations that you're performing.
Got your point. But the one concern which arises with technology, not in just agriculture but in every field, is the cyber security. With technology, it's all about data. Yeah, and data breaching, it happens in every industry, it happens in every sector. So how, till what extent do you think this agriculture innovations is prepared for cyber security?
As far as agriculture industry is concerned, there are not many threats which are witnessed in this particular industry in comparison to different industry. So if there are not any more threats in comparison to different industries, so there are no advancements or key developments in by tech companies to stop or to curb the cyber attacks. However, as data is being generated every day, zillions of data is being generated every day across all the range of industries, be it agriculture or be it any other industry, there is a certain possibility of companies coming together, collaborating together to implement technologies to stop the cyber attacks and to stop any threat from this cyber.
So I agree to my friend's point here, and I also would like to add a point here with an example. Recently, last 1 year, you might be witnessing the ongoing conflict of Ukraine and Russia.
Yes.
Right? So, from outside, if you see, it's just a camaraderie where two nations are fighting for some things or some political issues. But to look into a different perspective, you would see the regions where Russia occupied or Russians occupied. There were some of the regions which were in high growing wheat areas. They could be compared to wheat baskets also, the Basque region. And the time when Russia attacked, it was already a harvest time. People might be thinking, so what exactly did that challenge? What challenges that posed? The prices or the commercial commodity prices of wheat went high because there was a serious concern that particular wheat that was being grown in that particular region is not anymore available for local or any kind of commercial activity. However, NASA Harvest is an organization with the help of a company called Planet and some other companies also. They actually dig a little deeper and they found that even with this ongoing war, that particular wheat growing in that area was actually harvested. Where exactly it went, nobody knows, but it was harvested.
Okay.
So we are talking about tons and kilotons and million tons of wheat we are talking about. When it comes to cyber security, one thing that we need to realize is the threat, as he mentioned. Are there any viable threats? Of course there are. Wherever you have a data, there is a possibility of breach. However, we need to understand, is it an immediate concern or something that can be developed or worked upon later on? Currently, at this level of adoption, I don't think so any hacker would be interested in knowing what exactly is going on in a country, what exactly they are growing, unless there is a war-like situation.
But that could be.
That could be, of course, in any ongoing conflict. Any nation would like to cut food supply to the other nation.
That could be the basic, or I would say that could be cut from the root. If you want to make any of the country, every agriculture, as you talked about technology. Okay, so now we'll move to our second segment of the podcast, that is the rapid fire segment. In this, I'll ask questions and I'll give you a few options. Or in some questions, there might not be an answer or there might not be any options. But yeah, of course, you have to give it in a sentence or so. Okay. So my first question is that which approach do you find more exciting? Precision agriculture or regenerative agriculture?
Both. You can do regenerative agriculture with the help of precision agriculture. They are not different. One is a technology, one is a type of farming.
Moving to my next question, which agtech sector excites you the most? Smart sensors for precision farming or autonomous farm machineries?
Smart sensors for precision farming.
What about you?
I would go with autonomous machines.
Okay, why so different answers?
So, see, sensors, they have a certain limitations. Now, I'm talking about smart machines or autonomous machines that can completely change the way we look at agriculture. If you remember, you said by agriculture you mean tractors.
Of course.
But after smart machineries and autonomous machineries are evolved enough to completely replace the human factor here, the sensors are actually integrated to these machines only. So you don't require a set of IoT station, weather station or anything else. You just require a small machine that may look or may not look like a tractor, but it can do wonders.
Moving on to my next question, Which aspect of entire agri supply chain do you need tech integration the most?
Are there any options? Or shall I choose it? So I think you need to understand that agricultural value chain is a little bit different from other industries. You know, why exactly? Because the raw material and the product is actually grown in the same field. So raw material is basically the seeds and the inputs, and you are getting the final product out of that field only. So to be honest, all these operations, they are connected to each other. When you start your process, you sow seeds, you have the fields to irrigate, right? So all these processes are interconnected. So if you are choosing one operation over other for adoption, you can't go by that. Although you can selectively choose, for example, irrigation. You can selectively choose to improve technology adoption in irrigation, but that is not going to help you a lot. Right, so it's kind of an overall operation. So you have to understand the agriculture value chain as one. However, after harvesting is done, there is a serious need for technology adoption. Why? Because there is a huge waste problem. So almost 20 to 30% of the total food being produced globally is wasted just after harvesting. There are a lot of challenges with that. We lack storage, we lack proper segregation, we lack a lot of things. So technology adoption there could put a huge impact. But when you talk about the agricultural operational or the operational value chain, you have to think it as a whole. Then only we can get some fruitful conclusions or fruitful implementations with respect to agriculture technology.
Okay. Moving to my next question. How do the benefits of GMOs balance against ethical and ecological concerns?
Okay, so it depends on the policy. Whether a particular country allows you to grow with GMO seeds or not. There are many countries which have a policy strict ban on GMO seeds. So in those particular countries, this question is irrelevant. But for the countries where the GMOs are actually allowed, GMOs can help in using selective breeding and all. You can actually select a crop variety which is highly resilient. And if we add the ongoing challenges, for example, the climate change, GMOs are doing great. One of the great examples that I can give here is rice. You would be amazed to know that rice alone is one of the highest greenhouse gas emitter among all the crops. So if you compare all the crops, almost 90% of the emissions, I'm just talking about crop production, not other operations, crop productions. Rice is the unsung hero, not hero, basically the villain here when it comes to emissions.
Yes.
With selective breeding and GMO use, we can reduce the amount of water that is required for rice, and emissions occur in rice plantations because of waterlogging.
Okay,
so that can be reduced.
Won't that affect the quality of the product?
Not at all. It depends. As I said, it is a misconception that GMO seeds lack something in with respect to the natural selectiveness of the natural type of seeds or natural seeds. It's just a misconception. The selective breeding allows you to choose the perfect variety which is resilient enough to stand outside in that scorching heat. It's very important right now. I'm not saying for the countries where it's completely banned. Of course, the best thing is organic. But you have to understand, in natural breeding process, it takes thousands of years for a particular crop variety to look like the way it is now, right? But GMO allows you to select that particular gene that makes that particular crop or will make that particular crop resilient, which is very important right now.
So, so what is the biggest trend right now in the agriculture industry?
Biggest trend?
Yes.
I think there are a lot of trends that can be termed as biggest, but I think the biggest trend is, of course, vertical integration and horizontal integration among the companies. So what earlier used to be a differentiation factor, I mean, you can differentiate between two types of companies in agriculture. So there were companies who were selling chemicals. These are basically fertilizer and crop protection chemical companies. There were companies who are manufacturing agricultural equipment, OEMs and all. So majorly these two types of companies used to exist, and the seed companies also. So these three types of companies used to exist in agricultural world. But now all these three types of categories, they are trying to integrate technology with them. So what they are doing, they are acquiring new technological, let's say not trends, basically companies or startups that is doing all. So a chemical company, for example, a Syngenta, they are also acquiring farm robotics companies. They are also investing into precision agriculture. They are also investing into software and FMS. ACCO on the other hand, or Kubota on the other hand, which was an OEM, basically used to manufacture agricultural equipment, it is also doing the same. And seed companies are also trying to do the same. So there is a integration going on across value chain, and to be fair, maybe next 10 to 20 years, the thin line, or let's say the wide line or wide gap between these three types of companies will, it might not vanish, but it will become thin. So differentiation factors will be very less. So in all, it's something that is contributing for a greater good, and a high level of collaboration is also expected after this. But I think this is the biggest trend in terms of AgTech universe. Rest everything is a trend.
Okay. So coming to my final question, and it's for both of you. Describe the future of farming technology in one sentence.
It's gonna be green.
Okay.
So I'll give you my explanation later.
Going to be energy efficient.
Energy efficient.
But that's fair, basically.
Yeah.
So I covered it.
You covered it in the green part, I guess.
So green, it represents sustainability, energy efficiency, everything, right? Green as in crops growing outside with full resiliency, feeding no matter how many people are there on earth. So yeah, it's going to be green.
Okay. And that concludes this episode of Deep Tech Talk, a tech podcast presented by BIS Research. We hope you gained valuable insight on the pivotal role of technology in the agriculture industry. Until next time, this is your host Jaya signing off from the Deep Tech Talk.